Hello, my name is Orchida. I'm an IE design student.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm an architecture student, and we are interviewing Martha Thorne, our Dean of Architecture and Design. So to start, we had one question that was fitting since Pritzker Prize was announced yesterday, and we have the Grafton, architects who were selected, which happens to be two amazing women. So we were hoping that you could actually tell us a bit of their main qualities that you think really pushed them ahead of all the other contestants.
Right. It's really a joy, first to be speaking with you, but also to be able to talk about Yvonne Farrow and Shelley McNamara, because as you know, this is the first time that the Pritzker has gone to two women who practice together. Of course, their architecture, as seen in their built work, is the most important aspect, as well as service to humanity. And if we look at their buildings, I think some of the characteristics that the jury mentioned repeatedly have to do with the idea of placemaking. That a building is not an object that's just sitting in a city or in a neighborhood, but it really has to contribute to that in a way so people feel connected to it. They want to use it, they want to care for it. Another characteristic that we can see in a lot of the work of Shelley and Yvonne is the ability to have sections, or the buildings vertically are as rich as they are horizontally. And lots of times they use a technique of light as an element of architecture or design. Natural light may filter in from above. It comes in through the placement of windows. And then that connection of people on the inside to look out, to feel that they're part of this larger place. So I think those characteristics, along with sustainability, they're not high-tech architects who are adding solar panels and gizmos that make the shades go up and down, things like that. They take a much more passive approach, understanding the climate, understanding all aspects of the changes of seasons, the light, the winds, the humidity. And I think they also, at least from what I could see in my experience of their buildings, they want people to feel comfortable. And lots of times we feel very comfortable when we're not fully inside or fully outside, but we're in that in-between place. And you can find this in their buildings. It could be porches, it could be the entranceway, or in the case of a university in Lima, Peru, there are lots of casual spaces for meetings that are protected by the building, but open to the winds. So I think those are the characteristics that I would highlight, and that certainly the jury did in their architecture.
Incredible. That's very great. So what do you believe makes a good design? What qualities are supposed to be existent in a good design?
I have to say, and it's something that I'm always repeating, a good design solves many problems at the same time. And good design means you can't add anything to make it better, and you can't take anything away because that would make it weaker. So a good design is one where you understand the complexity of the environment, and where you're able to solve multiple problems. Let me give you an example. It's from the field of architecture, but it could be at any scale. When we heard from Kayue Bergman, who was here from Big Studio last week, and he talked about the waste to energy plant in Copenhagen. Well, this is an incinerator to burn trash, but it does so much more. It's an educational institution because it teaches the community school children who visit it, how does recycling work? It burns trash to make electricity that provides electricity. I think it's to about 500,000 households in Copenhagen. It's also a place for recycling. It's a laboratory for experimentation. And then on top of that, it's a place for leisure because they've created a ski slope on the roof of the building. And finally, it's beautiful. So being able to solve many problems and contribute in many ways, I think is the great challenge of design, and it distinguishes great design from okay design.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. No, really interesting. And as well, over the past decade, I would ask if you've noticed, specifically for women in architecture, if there's been any changes for women and barriers, even for yourself in your own experience. And have you seen any kind of development in recent years?
Yeah, I think the biggest development is much more attention being given to gender, to the quest for equality of opportunity. It's a discussion that we can have naturally and openly in the classroom, in the workplace, within the jury of the Pritzker Prize in many places. And I would say, to me, that gives me great hope, because we might not always disagree, or we might not always agree, but certainly if we can talk about the issues and try to understand why discrimination exists and continues to exist, now much more subtly than before, but it still exists, and what can we do? And that's based on my idea that women as men are extremely talented. We have enormous challenges in the built environment, in the natural environment, in the digital environment, and we can't waste anyone's talent. And if a woman or a man is devoted to design, to architecture, and they have the qualities that mean that they would be good professionals, then really what we should do as a profession, as an academic institution, is open all those doors so they can go through with full force.
Because I mean, even in our class, for example, my class specifically in fourth year, we're predominantly women in the class, and I remember...
Yeah, we're 20 women and 3 men, so...
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible. And
amazing.
Even we had a couple of our teachers, they told us, our female teachers, they recall when they were in school for architecture, and they were the only woman in the room, essentially.
Yeah.
So it really shows a big shift.
It is a big shift. I think now where we have to make sure there is a shift is in those more subtle areas. For example, think about the bibliographies that you read. We have to give voices to women who are writing. We have to give voices to women who are great lecturers, who are great teachers, great leaders in all senses. And we still have some barriers there, but I think we can be optimistic.
Of course. Following from that, what quality or what advice would you give young women who are aspiring to become prominent architects and designers in the near future?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say always be vigilant about what your context is. Be very observant. Being observant is always good in design and architecture, but also understanding your context. How do people interact? What type of a team structure is it? If you're in school or if you're in a professional environment, how does that work? Because sometimes I think we forge ahead with assumptions, and the world is changing quickly. And so if we can understand what our context is, I think we can be more efficient. Other advice, what could I give to women? I think it would be more this idea of develop knowledge, develop skills, and also don't be afraid of your ideas, because ideas are something very personal, and that's a value that each person can contribute to whatever problem they're solving or whatever project or design they're working on. But then in order to be effective, you need to be able to explain the facts behind it, that knowledge that you've developed or brought together to empower those good ideas. So facts, knowledge is more than facts, it's understanding, and then ideas. And then I think everything goes from there.
100%.
I mean, with your own career, you've delved into many different roles within the realm of architecture, and now you find yourself in academia, which you've mentioned before is very rewarding. So I think we'd like to know what specifically within academia makes it so rewarding.
Yeah.
I think the thing about academia that is rewarding to me, and maybe it has to do with being at IE School of Architecture and Design, I have the feeling that ideas for new initiatives, or the door for new initiatives, is open. You can try new things. We teach online, we teach in the classroom, we have the Fab Lab, we have group work. So there's always new ways of approaching things, and this idea of testing, learning, and trying to find a better way to then share with other people, I think it's really rewarding. I think the other thing about academia is that it puts into practice the idea that only working collectively, only working together can we really create knowledge. And again, the world is changing, and it means sometimes that it's a little scary, but other times it has great opportunity. And so I think sharing knowledge with faculty, with students, with colleagues from the other schools, I know it's helped me to understand the world. I hope grow as a person, and I hope that together we've been able to solve some challenges, or at least approach challenges together.
Of course. To wrap it up, I mean, all of us, architects, designers, students, we always deal with the creativity block. So as a prominent creative, how would you advise all of us to kind of get over our creativity block and to become more creative?
Oh, goodness. You know, it's funny because, first of all, I don't know what a creativity block is.
Yeah.
And second of all, I never considered myself as a creative person.
Oh.
It's a very difficult question.
Yeah, it's difficult. I would have to say the people that I admire, who I think are really creative, are those people who look in unexpected places, or who are not concerned about what is the value of this reading this article, or what is the value of this, but they're much more open, and they have a mental structure where they sort of are adding things to it. Let me give you an example. Lots of times I like to go to the cinema. And it's very enjoyable. But then I find there's some way I can put it in my mental structure to remember something about it, whether it's the music or the setting, the photography, the storyline. And I keep it in this structure and mental structure. Or maybe it's a trip I take, or maybe it's a conversation with someone, or a book I read. It could be a travel book, it could be a book about science. And if you can sort of keep that in a mental structure, and then when you're faced with a design challenge or an architecture challenge, pull those things out that in the first moment you thought didn't have any relationship with a certain problem, those are the most creative people that move outside their discipline, move outside a categorization of a subject, and allow this cross-pollination. And I think if I had a creative block, I'd probably go to the movies.
Take a break.
Take a break.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying is that creativity can't be planned, and it comes and finds you in unexpected places.
Exactly.
It does. That said, the other thing too, I would say that the most creative people are well-read, are open-minded, are rigorous in their thought processes. People like to say people are geniuses, they're born. You're born with talent, but only as an adult, or even as a child, but only it's up to the individual to develop the talent. And I think that, again, maybe that's also a difference. There are some people born with lots of talent, but they let it rest and lies dormant. There are other people maybe with a little bit less, but because they nurture it, they're the real creative people.
Well, I think we'd both like to say thank you, because it's a great experience
It's
to
a
be
great pleasure, honestly.
young architects and designers to be speaking with you and hearing your opinions.
It certainly is mutual, and I'm really glad that we have these opportunities. I hope we have more.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.